welcome to Too Fond of Books. My name is Janelle, and this is Merry Murder Mystery Monday. I'm so excited to be doing these for Cloak and Dagger Christmas. Each week during December, I am going to be recommending 6 books from a different category of mystery, and this has been really fun so far. Today's category is Vintage or Golden Age Mysteries, and I'm very excited with what I found. These are all mysteries that are set around the holidays, and I had a hard time actually narrowing it down to just 6. This one was the one that I had the most difficulty with, but let's just dive right into them. I've got them in order of publication, with the oldest first. So my first recommendation for Merry Murder Mystery Monday Vintage Edition is The Santa Claus Murder by Mavis Doriel Hay. This was published in 1936, and it can be used for 10 Lords of Leaping Prompt because it has nobility in it. I really enjoyed this mystery. Aunt Mildred declared that no good could come of the Melbury family Christmas gatherings at their country residence, Flaxmere. So when Sir Osmond Melbury, the family patriarch, is discovered by a guest dressed as Santa Claus with a bullet in his head on Christmas Day, the festivities are plunged into chaos. Nearly every member of the party stands to reap some sort of benefit from Sir Osmond's death, but Santa Claus, the one person who seems to have every motive to fire the shot, has no... But Santa Claus, the one person who seems to have every opportunity to fire the shot, has no apparent motive. Various members of the family have their private suspicions about the identity of the murderer, and the chief constable of Halmshire, who begins his investigations by saying that he knows the family too well, and that is his difficulty, wishes before long that he understood them better. In the midst of mistrust, suspicion, and hatred, it emerges that there was not one Santa Claus, but 2. So yes, this was a really fun holiday read. I love that there is a map at the beginning of the house. There is a list of characters, which I always find helpful as well. Chapter 1, The Family at Flaxmere by Philip Cheriton. I have known the Melbury family since the time when Jennifer, the youngest daughter, and I climbed trees and built wigwams together in the Flaxmere garden. I know enough about them, therefore, to set down as much of the history of the family as is necessary to an understanding of the general situation at that Christmas time, 1935, when the Flaxmere crime was committed. Very fun. Okay, I also want to recommend A Holiday for Murder by Agatha Christie. This was originally published as Hercule Poirot's Christmas. It was also published as Murder for Christmas. So classic Agatha Christie, there are multiple names depending on if it was published in the UK or in the United States. This was published in 1939. It started when wealthy Simeon Lee called his sons and their wives together on Christmas Eve and told them he was drawing up a new will. It ended horribly a few hours later as his children sat around the dinner table, their meal interrupted by a blood-chilling scream coming from the old man's bedroom. For the visiting Hercule Poirot, it would be no holiday from murder. This one also has a fantastic author's note or dedication at the beginning. My dear James, you have always been one of the most faithful and kindly of my readers, and I was therefore seriously perturbed when I received from you a word of criticism. You complained that my murders were getting too refined, anemic in fact. You yearned for a, quote, good violent murder with lots of blood, end quote. A murder where there was no doubt about its being murder. So this is your special story written for you. I hope it may please. Your affectionate sister-in-law, Agatha. Isn't that great? All right, part 1, December 22nd. Stephen pulled up the collar of his coat as he walked briskly along the platform. Overhead, a dim fog clouded the station. Large engines hissed superbly, throwing off clouds of steam into the cold, raw air. Everything was dirty, and smoke grinned. Stephen thought with revulsion, What a foul country. What a foul city. Okay, next up we have Catt Out of the Bag by Clifford Witting. This was published in 1939. How, where, and why did a man disappear from a group of carol singers on that cold December night in Paulsfield? It hardly seemed likely that he had absconded with the collection box, but the more Inspector Charlton found out about the missing person, the less certain he became he would find him alive. Yes, this was a good one as well. It's got a map here of part of Paulsfield. Again, I love that when there's maps in these Golden Age books. A rather curious thing happened during the evening of Sunday, the 21st December. My wife and I were spending a few days with the Dufresnes, who had a big house, Windermere, overlooking Paulsfield Common. Mrs. Dufresne was an old friend of Molly's family, and since our marriage had showered invitations upon us. Molly had been anxious to accept, but I had not been too keen. There you have it. And then we have Envious Casca by Georgette. It's also known as A Christmas Party. This was first published in 1941, and again, this one was a really fun Christmas mystery. A large rambling house, a strange Christmas party, 8 ill-assorted guests, and a host who hated both the festivities and his visitors. These were the bizarre ingredients and setting of a most unseasonable crime. Murder. Haha, isn't that good? This is Georgette Heyer's celebrated detective novel of the Christmas party that went wrong. We're going to have a real Christmas jollification, declared Joseph Herriard with determined gaiety to the 7 other guests assembled in his brother Nat's big house. Poor Nat heartily disliked Christmas, and most of his guests too, for that matter, who were as ill-assorted a lot as one could hope to find. Clearly, all the traditional goodwill possible was going to be needed for the occasion. It was therefore sadly unseasonable when Nat was found stabbed in his room before dinner. This model of detective fiction, with its expert construction, its delightful irony and cunning solution, will be one of the most keenly welcomed of Miss Heyer's crime novels, which maintain their effortless superiority. Chapter 1. It was a source of great satisfaction to Joseph Herriard that the holly trees were in full berry. He seemed to find in this circumstance an assurance that the projected reunion of the family would be a success. For days past he had been bringing prickly sprigs into the house, his rosy countenance beaming with pleasure, and his white locks, worn rather long and grandly waving, ruffled by the December winds. "Just look at the berries," he would say, thrusting his sprigs under Nathaniel's nose, laying them on Maud's card table. All right, and then we have Who Killed the Curate? A Christmas Mystery by Joan Coggin. This was written in 1944, and it is set in 1937. It's the first book in the series, and it would fit the prompt for 10 Lords a-Leaping because there is nobility in it. The main character is Lady Lupin, and she is the daughter of an earl. When the curate is poisoned on Christmas Eve, Lady Lupin turns detective. Her deductions might not always make sense, but you'll be laughing too hard to care. Meet Lady Lupin Lorimer Hastings, the young, lovely, scatterbrained, and kind-hearted newlywed wife to the vicar of St. Mark's Parish in Glanville, Sussex. When it comes to matters clerical, she literally doesn't know Jews from Jesuits, and she's hopelessly at sea at the meetings of the Mothers' Union, Girl Guides, or Temperance Society. Nonetheless, she's determined to make husband Andrew proud of her, or at least not to embarrass him too badly. So when Andrew's curate is poisoned, Loops, as her friends call her, enlists old society pals Duds and Tommy Lethbridge, as well as Andrew's nephew, a British Secret Service agent, to get at the truth. Lupin refuses to believe Diana Lloyd, the 38-year-old author of children's and detective stories, could have done the deed, and casts her net out over the other parishioners. But all the suspects seem so nice, much more so than the victim, and Lupin announces she'll help the killer escape if only he or she confesses. Imagine Gracie Allen of Burns and Allen or Pauline Collins of No Honestly as a sleuth, and you might get a tiny idea of what Lupin is like. This was a really fun, light-hearted mystery. I enjoyed this one too. Chapter 1. "How is my face?" asked Lady Lupin Lorimer. "Not too bad," replied her friend Duds Lethbridge. "That spot hardly shows at all unless you get right under the light. You might put up a little rouge, though." "I have just spent a guinea in having it massaged and made up," replied Lupin coldly. "Oh, have you? Well, never mind. If you hadn't wasted it on that, you would probably have wasted it on something else." And then last but not least, we have Murder for Christmas by Francis Duncan. This was originally published in 1949, and it is part of the Mordecai Tremaine series. When Mordecai Tremaine arrives at the country retreat of one Benedict Graham on Christmas Eve, he discovers that the revelries are in full swing, but so too are tensions among the guests. When midnight strikes, the partygoers discover that presents aren't the only things nestled under a tree. There's a dead body, too. A dead body that bears a striking resemblance to Father Christmas. With the snow falling and suspicions flying, it's up to Mordecai to sniff out the culprit and prevent anyone else from getting murder for Christmas. I also really enjoyed this one. Francis Duncan is a Golden Age writer that doesn't get a lot of attention, and I think that he should. His books are really fun. Prologue. No one could have foretold how it was going to end, not even the murderer. It is not to say that the crime was hastily conceived and clumsily executed. The majority of murderers are anxious to live to savor the fruits of their villainies. They realize that one slip may deliver them to the hangman. They know that to be careless is to be lost. And in this case, the murderer possessed both desire to profit and the knowledge of how perilously thin the dividing line is between safety and disaster. So there you have it. Those are my 6 recommendations for vintage or golden age mysteries. Have you read any of these? Do any of these sound interesting to you? You still have time to fit them in between Christmas and New Year's if you are not sick of holiday mysteries yet. Or you can put them on your list for next Christmas. Let's chat in the comment section down below about holiday vintage mysteries. I would love it if you could recommend one of your favorite Golden Age mysteries that are set at Christmas. And I will see you for another video soon. Bye.